Part 21. Crazy Lady from Mongolia. When I came back from Mongolia, I returned to my job at the dealership company. One of my responsibilities was depositing daily cash at the bank. Not long after my return, a woman at the bank asked where I'd been. I told her about my father's passing. I could feel my voice cracking as I shared the story. She listened, but I could see the regret on her face. She hadn't expected such a heavy answer. A few days later, I received a postcard from her. In it, she expressed her condolences and apologized for bringing it up. It was so kind, but also so foreign to me. Back in Mongolia, we don't typically express sympathy that way. It was one of those moments that reminded me just how different cultures can be, even in something as universal as grief. While I worked, I kept in touch with my family. My biggest concern was my mom. She and my dad had been together since high school, over 40 years of partnership and love. His loss shattered her. She was hospitalized several times as she struggled to cope. At the same time, Gamba and my two sons were still trying to get their US visas. Each rejection felt like a blow, but I didn't give up. I kept hoping, kept waiting. By then, I'd been working at the dealership for 6 months, and my apartment lease was up for renewal. But without my family, I felt unbearably lonely. I decided it was time for a change. I told my Filipino friends about my plan to move to Seattle. Gamba's university friend lived there with his family, and we'd known them since 1994. It felt like the right move, a chance to be around familiar faces. So, I resigned from my job, packed my car, and set out on a solo road trip from Dallas to Seattle. Nearly 3,000 miles, 3 days, alone. When I told my Filipino friends, they laughed and called me the crazy lady from Mongolia. And honestly, they weren't wrong. It was crazy, but I was determined. The drive was exhausting. Whenever I felt too tired, I'd pull over, rest in the fields, and sleep for a while. I spent one night in a motel and another visiting a Mongolian family in Utah. Late on the third day, I finally arrived in Seattle. I stayed with friends for a few days before finding a room with a family, a couple and their teenage daughter. They were incredibly kind, and we became friends right away. While studying online, I searched tirelessly for a job but found nothing. After 3 months, I decided to visit Mongolia again. But this time, the trip wasn't the joyful reunion I'd hoped for. My mom's health had worsened, and my kids missed me terribly. For the first time, I questioned my dream. Still, I reminded myself why I started this journey. I needed to finish my studies. So, I returned to Seattle and kept looking for work. Meanwhile, my family's visa applications were denied again and again. Eventually, I made the hardest decision of my life. I chose to return to Mongolia. I emailed my school, explaining my situation and promising to continue my studies online. Thankfully, they understood. Among my classmates, I was the first and only one to leave the US, but I couldn't stay while my loved ones were suffering. You see, the US isn't the only place where dreams come true. Life is full of opportunities, and sometimes, stepping back isn't about giving up, it's about finding a new way forward. See you in the next video.